Hey everybody, it's Nick from Android Headlines, and today we're bringing you our full HTC Vive review. So as a concept, VR isn't anything new. It's been in movies for decades, and we've seen plenty of VR headsets and other products enter and leave the market in fleeting fashion over the years. Our fascination as a society with augmenting reality, or even completely replacing it with virtual reality, has been pretty consistent since the 80s, but it feels like it's finally come to fruition with the HTC Vive. Sure, there are plenty of other VR solutions out there, but I'm going to say it right now. The HTC Vive is absolutely, unequivocally the greatest VR experience you're going to have anywhere at this present time, period. Taking a look at the hardware here, it's difficult to ignore that price. At $799, it's $200 more expensive than the Oculus Rift, and about $400 more expensive than the PlayStation VR. I've tried every one of these, including the motion controllers for the Oculus Rift, and while all of them are good, they simply cannot match the Vive's interactive features. VR is definitely a niche thing right now, and that's not going to change anytime soon, especially at this price. So here the saying, go big or go home, really applies. Inside that expensive package comes everything you need to get going, and there's nothing to buy to enhance the experience at all here either. Starting with the headset, which is the most obvious component of the Vive, you're looking at a fairly weighty 555 grams that will always be sitting on your head. This unit is both larger and heavier than its competitors, but there's a good reason for that. Littered all around the headset are sets of sensors that detect your every movement and enable a level of interaction the other VR options don't yet offer. It's an iconic looking unit for sure, and even though it's heavy, I found it to be super comfortable, even after long play sessions of 2 to 3 hours at a time. My wife didn't quite agree with this, so your mileage is going to vary on this, and it's going to depend on the size of your head and various other things. The unit is held on your head via a set of 3 adjustable straps that attach with a Velcro system, and are elasticy and stretchy enough to conform to your head. Those needing more room between the face pad and the lenses for glasses or something else can adjust the length of the headset quite a bit using the knobs on the side. Likewise, the lenses themselves space out between 61 and 75 millimeters to match the distance between your pupils. You'll also notice there's a camera on the front of the Vive which enables full-on room view of your surroundings for a number of different reasons, be it interacting with various things in the room or just making sure you don't trip over your pets or other hazards lying around. This is also another thing the Vive has that nothing else on the market does at the present time. The downside of this design really isn't the weight though, it's actually the face pads that cushion your skin from rubbing against the hard plastic. While these won't be an issue if you're the only one wearing the Vive, sharing might be a bit of an issue. That's because they get, well, pretty sweaty even after brief use, and that's not exactly the nicest thing to share. The included earbuds will likely also not want to be shared either, so you may be looking to get some cans for your head or some additional pads for other people if this is going to be a regular thing. That 15-foot long cable coming out of the top of the unit is also a bit of a downside, as it's the only wired component in the whole package, but honestly, I almost never found this getting in the way. So long as it's on your back, you'll not likely trip over it. Although there were enough times where somebody got tangled just right and yanked it out of the link box to become a minor issue. Thankfully though, the link box is there and it'll pull out of that rather than the back of your computer, keeping those expensive components on the back of your computer from getting damaged. Moving on to the lenses themselves, these are actually really excellent, especially compared with what you've likely experienced on a cheaper Google Cardboard headset or maybe some other older VR units. There's still some edge distortion here, make no mistake about it, but there's no adjustment period for your eyes like the old units, and no chromatic aberration or any other weird things like that either. The displays behind each lens are 1080 by 1200 OLED panels, effectively making the whole display a 2160 by 1200 pixel display. These displays themselves are gorgeous with amazing black levels and saturation that you've come to expect from OLED displays, all while refreshing at a much higher 90 Hz refresh rate. This higher refresh rate coupled with the better lenses helps eliminate motion sickness and headaches for those that have had such issues with older VR units. You'll still see pixels on this display, it's simply not high-res enough not to, but unless you're trying to judge distance detail, it's really not an issue, and they simply melt away as you become engrossed in the VR world. On top of that, we really don't have the horsepower to be running these things in higher res for the time being, so you're not going to see this different on any other VR headset. Interacting with the VR world is done via a pair of motion controllers that will likely remind users of a Wii or PS Move controller. This elongated setup allows for seamless transition between pointing or shooting and grabbing a sword or other weapon to swing it. On top of each controller you'll find a trackpad that's identical to the ones found in the Steam controller and offers tactile movement for your thumbs via haptic feedback engines inside. These give it a completely deeper dimension of touch than just an analog stick would, and there's even a click to the touchpad like an analog stick might have. The haptics in here will be able to give you micro feedback to what's happening in the VR world, so your thumbs will feel what's going on rather than just sliding over a smooth plastic surface. Above the touchpad is a convex menu button, while a concave system button sits below. On each side sits a grip button, which both function as the exact same button and are made for ambidextrous pressing. On the back sits a dual-action trigger which can be pulled down in analog fashion to a point, at which it actually turns into a digital button. If you've used a GameCube controller, PS4 controller, or of course the Steam controller, you know exactly what I mean here. These controllers are incredibly light and accurate and have about a 5-hour battery life. Charging the built-in non-removable battery is done via micro USB port on the bottom. And of course, don't forget about that all-important wrist strap located down there as well, because you don't want to be throwing these through your TV or a window. These controllers are also well built despite being plastic and survived quite a few hard smacks against the wall during my use without any physical damage or scratching. On the software side, SteamVR is the platform that powers the Vive, and that comes with all the games and community support that you likely already know and love about Steam. Right now there's nearly 200 games that work with the Vive, and that's only a few weeks after release, with more being added every single day. There's also patches practically every other day to SteamVR and the Vive itself to fix one bug or another, add some feature that wasn't quite done yet, and plenty of other system launch type of stuff going on here. This is a growing world, and it's very obvious by how fast things are changing. Movement in the Vive is nothing short of sublime, and it is absolutely what separates the unit from any other VR experience out there. A pair of lighthouses, as they're called, work in tandem to let your headset and controllers know where you are in the physical real-world space thanks to a laser-guided mechanism inside of each box. Just be sure to keep these on a sturdy mount, such as the included wall mounts, as the motors inside each box vibrate enough that they could slowly move themselves out of alignment to your original setup and cause problems. These feature a 120-degree angle view of the room, and I almost never found any problems with movement outside of occlusion or other issues that myself or other people had created. Being able to move around in what's called room-scale VR is absolutely stunning, until you're in the VR world and realize the possibilities of actually being able to move like you can in real life. It's very difficult to understand what a breakthrough this is in virtual interaction. Many VR headsets are like a different window into the virtual world, letting you look around and that sort of thing, but the Vive actually makes it feel like you're stepping into the virtual world and residing there. Ducking behind virtual walls and hiding from robots and budget cuts is such a surreal feeling it's difficult to describe. Having actual scale rooms to move through in games, seeing things as you would in real life, and most importantly being able to move and interact with these virtual worlds creates an experience like no other. There are so many experiences to cover that it's impossible to mention all of them here. Some of my absolute favorites are part of Valve's The Lab, a collection of mini-games that's included with every Vive that are sure to spark your imagination. One is Zortex, a bullet hell type shooter that takes place in 3D space, and the other is Longbow, where you have to defend your castle gate by using a bow and arrow to shoot enemies. Another one called The Blue is an ocean exploration project that gives you 3 different, incredibly engrossing and immersive scenes to sink yourself into. And one called The Gallery, Call of the Starseed, will have you exploring a world and solving puzzles in a very Myst kind of way. Budget Cuts, of course, as we mentioned before, does nothing short of making you feel like a super spy that's sneaking around and taking out robots, while Unseen Diplomacy has another take on the spy concept by generating rooms as you actually walk around in real-world space to create a never-ending world in which you're always moving, dodging lasers, and other cliché spy things that are just plain awesome. In my 27 years of gaming, I've seen this industry move from 8-bit 2D games with a handful of colors to 3D games, and of course now to VR. And not since Mario 64 have I been this blown away with a single transition from one generation to the next. While we've gotten caught up in the number of polygons, resolution of textures, and amount of shaders in games for years, the leap from non-VR to Vive-powered VR is a type of cognitive leap like we've never seen. It's no longer about pushing reality in a way that fools your eyes into thinking the image looks real. It's now about changing the game to make an experience that feels real. There are already tons of games that showcase these possibilities too, and while there's not necessarily a system seller like Halo or Mario at the moment, there's certainly no shortage of amazing experiences that you can have right now. Given how fast games are being added to the store, and the kind of financial backing the industry has put behind VR, it's any wonder why this isn't one of the most exciting technical breakthroughs the industry has ever seen, and the Vive is absolutely leading that way in innovation. Over the last month since we've had the Vive, I let almost every single one of my friends and family members try it, and every one of them had exactly the same kind of experience. The initial wow factor was unbelievable. They couldn't believe how realistic everything felt, and once they were done, they couldn't wait to buy one, until of course they saw that price tag, and that's where the real shock value comes in. At $800, this thing is not cheap, and that doesn't even include the computer you need to run the thing. Can everyone afford it? No way, and unfortunately that's just going to be the deal for a while until VR gets a little bit bigger and is a little bit cheaper. The real question is this: would I pay $800 for this now? My answer? Absolutely, if I were able to, of course. And that's the biggest problem. Not everybody's going to be able to afford this. And until that price drops, we're not going to see some huge mainstream adoption of VR. There's just no way around it. But once that moment hits, I will absolutely be pulling the trigger for my own personal unit, and I imagine anybody else who has tried this will feel the same way. It is truly that good. Check out all our HTC Vive coverage on the site, and of course on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, and Twitter. Thanks for watching, and until next time.